this can form part of our confession as well. It's called Reconciliation, and it's by Rebecca Tadball Longdon. She's from the Wampasking First Nation, which is in Perry Island, Ontario. We are waking up to our history from a forced slumber. We are breathing into our lungs, so it will be part of us again. It will make us angry at first, because we will see how much you stole from us, and how far along you watched us suffer, and for how long you watched us suffer. We will see how you see us, and how we copied your ways. It killed our own. And we will cry and cry and cry, because we see ourselves in this huge mess, and we will gently whisper the circle back, and it will be old and it will be new. Then we will breathe our history back to you. You will feel how strong and alive it is. You will feel yourself become part of it. And it will shock you at first, because it is too big to see all at once, and you don't want to believe it. And you will see how you see us, and all the disaster in your ways, and how much we lost. And we will cry and cry and cry, because we can never be the same again. But we will cry with you, and we will see ourselves in this huge mess, and we will gently whisper the circle back, and it will be old and it will be new. The question is, why is reconciliation so difficult? So there's been plenty of sermons spoken from this pulpit on reconciliation. Rob spoke on March the 30th, 2014, about truth and reconciliation. There was a minute for mission, facing the past, read on March the 2nd. I gave a talk here on June 16th. Seems like this is a June event. Reoccurs, and Rob spoke again on Wither reconciliation on June the 7th, 2015. So June is a good reconciliation month. It's National Aboriginal Month. We're working our way towards National Aboriginal Day, which is taking place on the 21st of June. Brief recap what's been happening over the last little while in this regard. There was a Banff Men's Conference focused on this question that took place last September. Members of our congregation attended that. About 125 people were there. Since that time, there's been a Moving Forward committee that has been looking at ways of moving forward with the reconciliation. The exciting thing about that is it's reaching out to various churches in Edmonton that actually do many of the same things that we do, but we don't know about it. So Millwoods runs a food security program. They have the largest First Nations population in their area in the city, and they are part of the program. Trinity is part of it. St. Paul's, our neighbor over here. McDougall, which is very much the center of some of this historical activity down in that area. Garneau Church represented there, and St. Albert. So people are doing a great deal of things that are very, very heartwarming. There's a real willingness to reach out, to do what's right, and to reconcile. So why would it appear that there hasn't been more progress made in this regard? So why the frustration that you sometimes have with, we've been trying really hard and don't seem to be getting very far. It's hard to connect with First Nations people. It's hard to reconcile. So that will be the focus of my address to you today. I've broken it down into 3 parts. First part is the work of reconciliation and the work that needs to take place within the church itself. Second part discusses the 2 camps in the church. And the third part is a personal example. I'm going to examine reconciliation as it's taken place in my body over the last month. And I think that it's just my body, but it might have some influence on other bodies, ecumenical body, communities, those kinds of things. So My first point is reconciliation needs to take place within the church before it can have force and effect outside the church. I think the Native people have been very forward about their truth and the truth and reconciliation. Their stories have come forward, they're very moving. My question is, while the church appears to be reaching out with extraordinary measures, have they really come to their own truth? Has the church really found its own truth about the role that church actually played in the whole, the residential school and essentially the building of this country? So now I'll move on to the second part, which is the two camps within the church. There's probably more than two camps within the church, but for the purposes of my discussion, I'm going to call one the Jesus camp, where everyone is all about peace and love and listening, building community, joy, hopefulness, excitement, gratitude. And this group of people I don't think has any trouble at all with First Nations. They want to reach out to First Nations, they want to embrace them, and they want to be their friends, they want to do all they can for them. So yeah, they're a lot like the First Nations. They want to be connected with one another. They certainly want to be connected with the earth. And I feel like First Nations really are represented in the spirit, in that spirit within the church. There's joy, there's happiness, excitement, gratitude, freedom, solidarity, fervor, and courage to change the world. Now there's another faction in the church that lives, and actually we're all part of it. It's not like we're separate from it. We get involved in all parts, and it lives under what I call the myth of redemptive violence. And this is a myth that we get hammered home every time we watch a Tweety Bird cartoon or something, where Tweety is having all these problems with Sylvester, and then he solves it by somehow or other doing something rather drastic to Sylvester. It happens in every John Wayne movie where things are going really bad, and John shows up at the last minute and shoots everybody. And this myth just keeps on. And I think the myth exists within the church. You know, some of the stories you hear about the Hittites smiting everybody else, and perhaps even the story of David and Goliath. There's this idea that somehow or other violence is our savior, and that's a myth that it's controversial, I suppose, but even in some of the images that you receive from, say, the crucifixion, that are quite ghastly, and Jesus transcends all that, but even in the transcendence, you have to buy into all the violence that gets done to him, and the Roman law and everything else. So my contention is that there's these various themes or myths that are active in the church, and reconciliation, if it's going to be effective, needs to reconcile these myths, and then we'll be in a position to be open and giving and loving. And I think then the First Nations people will be very attracted to that. So the last part of this, I want to discuss this in terms of my own personal experience in my own body. I live right across from the cancer clinic, and I spent a lot of my life and thought trying to keep myself out of that clinic. So, I'm healthy, try to eat healthy foods, read about the latest things that are going on, and trying to stay up to speed, stay fit, those kinds of things. So when you find yourself in the emergency room and you've been told that, you feel like these big hands that you've been trying to get away from for so long are reaching up to grab you. So I really want to go into the knowledge and what's the cause of all this, and how can we get to the source and remedy it and do something to build the life of the body back. But what the treatment you get is, I think, falls into the category of the myth of redemptive violence, because it comes and kills everything. And one of the chemo nurses said, said, well, we can kill the cancer, but we're not sure about the patient's going to survive this this ordeal. And even in some of the things that happened with the Vietnam War, that some of the kids would come back and say, we had to destroy the town in order to save it. So they were talking about. So this myth, it permeates our culture, and I'm just saying that somehow or other there has to be a reconciliation. So in terms of my own, I'm a survivor because of that. I'm $1 million man sitting here. Let's work it up. $2,000 a day. Another $5,000 for nursing, because there's 2 nurses per person. Another $15,000 for doctors. And then you stock up your lab and your narcotics, there's some narcotics which are good. But there's a lot of pharmaceutical. So we're cranking in at $35,000 a day. Have me sitting across the street 35 days, I'm $1 million man. So there's resources in behind that. And so, I kind of felt like a failure, I didn't succeed. But then you get into the hospitals and all these things I've been trying, yoga, meditation, it's all. But when you get in there, they say, well, those are really good ideas. And the psychiatrists that have been there for 25 years, they say, no, you should exercise, you should go and meditate. So this is what I'm doing. So all these things, and I think that's kind of the message I want to try and deliver. They make, the whole myth of redemptive violence really rests on the community, and it wouldn't be effective without the community. So we wanted to crash the myth of redemptive violence. We just withdraw all our support, and it would come tumbling down. But that's going to cause adverse effects. So all I'm saying is that there's a balancing act that goes on, and the question of the title of this talk is, why is reconciliation so difficult? Well, this problem has been around for a while. It's been around for 2,000 years, the tension that existed between Paul and Jesus and some of Jesus' followers, and then on with the Council of Nicaea, the church proper sending a lot of stuff into exile that kind of came up later, and thought, oh, that's pretty damn interesting. Why didn't we hear about that sooner? But I think, the thrust of my talk today is that the connection with the First Nations people exists within us. We just have to reconcile all the other things that the church really represents in order to make that more effective. So I want to end with a Leonard Cohen quote. And Jesus was a sailor when he walked upon the water, and he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower. And when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him. We're drowning here. We're at this point, we're asking for Jesus, His Spirit, His love, His connection, and the ability to work together with you in this community to be part of the whole reconciliation. So I'm dying to hear, John, if you have anything to say about this kind of stuff, or Betty. I'm relying on some of these people, but if not, we'll just move right along. As a commissioning and benediction, I'm going to read the back page of last week's bulletin. This was written by Randy Romano on June the 10th, 1925. The only possible thing that can go wrong with union and the bright hopes of this hour grows out of the fact that it is left to you and me to carry it out. And we may forget our idealism and grow tired of being noble and worthy and Christian and the unselfish thing, and fail to follow the beckoning hand of wisdom that is better than our own. But if we do not, then truly the future is bright, as are the promises of God, and we may hope for great things and splendid days to come. That was written at the union of this church, and I think it echoes, for me at least today, and I hope it does for you.